All right, tonight we've got a lovely, watercolour painting, and what we say, isn't it? It's line and wash. So pretty much, when people say, sometimes call it pen and wash, it just means really, and there's a huge amount of variation of this that you can make the background slightly more loose and then tighten it up with some of more pen over the top, and it gives you kind of a bit of an illustrative feel to it, which is just a different way of representing it. And you can drop in, some lines and things where you fancy them to get. Really, helps to add texture to your painting, I think, as well, which is really nice. So yeah, it's a little bit more of a freer feel. I suppose one of the things that we'll need to still think about is making sure that we work light to dark to make sure that, if we've got some very light areas, we keep those nice and light whilst we're building up, because of course we can drop in like layers over the top, like the trees can go over this light sky, but not vice versa. We can't put any light colours over dark. So whichever area we're doing, whether we start here, here, or here, we do need to make sure that we work light to dark in each area if possible. Sometimes it's not, there's sometimes, depending on the way that things are layered up, you have to, it doesn't always work out like that, but it shouldn't be fine on these ones that we've got tonight. So the other thing is use colour in exactly the way you want to. So get testing all the way through tonight, the colours that you want. You can add more water to the colours to make them more translucent, sorry, or you can put the pigment on more heavily. And if you're not sure, start lighter and then work up, because sometimes if you've got lights and darks, sometimes people don't like a really strong contrast, and then other people do. So just go with what you fancy tonight. And I'd say that about anything really, whether it's tonight or not. So I'm just going to pull down my palette a little bit so that we can test. The other thing is, because we work in landscape, and you may find you've got kind of strips of very similar colour, do need to make sure you mix plenty up. And that doesn't mean just getting one colour and adding lots of water to it. That will thin it down, but you might need to get lots of colour and water together to make it more in-depth, but mix plenty up so that you can cover larger areas without it feeling too streaky. Unless you're going for a layered look where you do naturally get those more texture and well, not texture, but more layers and lines, that's fine as well. But if you're wanting to kind of keep it more watery, then watery effect, then make sure you've got plenty mixed up, and then you're not stopping and it's drying and then you get a line and like that. So I've got a selection of brushes tonight. I've got a flats are quite handy for putting on larger areas and kind of keeping the paint moving. And I've got 3 rounds of different sizes. I'm working really small, so these are not huge brushes. But obviously you can scale up if you're doing a bigger painting. Or you could use a mop to get these colours all nice and blended as well if you want to. I could go slightly bigger. Another flat here which I might dip into, but I am going to pop some lines on here just to get the proportion where I want it. But you can put no lines on if you want as well. If you want to just go freehand, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to just make sure I've set things out so I've got this section, kind of like, because I do want a lot of this walling, because I love, and lots of us do love that, like, cause it's the characteristic, isn't it, of the dales and the malls as well, where we have this lovely dry stone walling. So there we go. So I'm going to just have a little look to see that we've got, if we split this up into thirds, we would see that, this area here is nearly at 2/3 at the top, but I'm going to start with, when I'm doing anything that's going into perspective, is to make sure it's marked correctly. I'm just going to use the edge of the page to get the proportions right on here. So, I'm just going to pop in whereabouts, because I think this is probably a third up here, where this wall where this section starts up here. One, yeah, maybe just over a third there, where I think the wall is. So I'm looking at a third of my page. 1, 2, so maybe here. That's just a little mark. So but when you're doing in watercolour, you need to make sure it's much lighter. Mine's going to be very heavy so that you can see it on the screen, but it will come through your watercolour if you're not careful. So just make it nice and light when you're mapping it out. So I've just got where the wall comes up about a third here. And then I'm looking at the bottom corner here. So again, if I got a ruler or something straight, you don't have to draw this on, by the way, either, only if you want to. This is halfway mark on this page. You know, you can just kind of measure it out or whereabouts halfway is, etc. there. And then I'm going to go midway on here as well, between the two. It's easy for me to point it out if I do it like this, actually, for you. Yeah, that might have gone slightly up a little bit, but doesn't matter. It's just to show. So so yeah, so we can see that when we look at this wall here, this is halfway line or halfway mark, and then we're looking again, the bottom of the wall starts halfway between this quarter here. So that's why I'm going to put just a little mark to show where I want this wall to start. This is halfway. This is, you know, halfway between them. So we're using the bottom of our page and the side of our page to work out whereabouts this wall is. So I would always do, when I'm doing anything perspective, the nearest marks, so the front of the wall, and then the furthest marks. So what I need to work out is, use my little rule just to place it there. And halfway between this paper here. And again, it will differ slightly depending on the size of your paper, but you can use it as a guide if you're scaling up to a size that's an A size, like A4, A3, A5, etc. And you can start small if you don't want, if you want to just kind of just give you some, you know, not have like to think about it as much with it being bigger. You can start on A5 if you want to. So I'm just looking there. Just put the best way again. Okay. Halfway there. Just going to look at where this comes to. So I know that this is halfway on the page there. So I'm going to make sure my wall comes up a bit, the end of the wall to about here and here like that. And then all I'm going to do, if you have a little look as well, this one comes up kind of straight back, doesn't it, in a diagonal line. So you can check that again, fact check it. Is it about right? You can always move the lines if it's not. Now again, it's quite bumpy, so I'm just going to pop in just a few bumpy lines there to get that marked in. And then we've got this wall here that's a bit bumpy and then it goes off. So this one does start, it slants that way a little bit, which is what I've got this mark up here. And then it kind of curves around and goes up a little bit again. So, you know, proportionally, it's just how it fits on your particular paper. Mine's slightly wider. If I want to make it a little bit less wide, I'll just mark it off there like that. It's more in keeping with the picture that we've got there. There we go. Right. And then, so we've got the edge of the wall here, where that edge of that wall is. And then, you know, obviously we've got a few more things. So you can keep going with get the other wall in situ, or you can just have a little look at where, you know, the grassed area is, which is what I'm going to do. So you can see the grass kind of swoops round in the middle and it swoops back to the center point of the halfway mark there. Just here, look. There it goes. Starts down here, curves around and finishes. So if you wanted to pop in that, like that. Put a mark at the top, look where it swings round. And then a mark at the bottom here where it swings out to, and you can just kind of follow that round a little bit. Helps. Got that curving path. And then you can see how that path goes beyond. So again, we're looking at where halfway mark is on our paper, which is here. We can bring this all the way around here and see that it comes over into this quarter, which would be here, wouldn't it? So I'm just bringing it over here, like that. And then you'll see, is it parallel with this wall here? So it's got a slight slant on it. So it should have a slight slant, which that has as well, going down where the edge of the wall of the house is, like that. Okay, so we've got this grassed area in here, and we're just looking at this, you know, to get that in there. And we don't see much of the path. So this bit here, that's where this halfway mark is. This bit just comes out, doesn't it? Let's find the halfway mark. So we want the edge of the grass here, where it comes to, which comes in fairly wide. So that's, if we use this as a guide from the middle. This bit here comes about to here. I might need to move this slightly actually, but that's fine. And then we're looking at where this grass, that's the corner, and it comes inwards a little bit to here, just kind of underneath there. So we can put that mark in, and then we want to see where it comes. So it's right on the corner here, pretty much. And then the grass bank as well, the width of it is like this. It's not as wide, is it, as this? So we can compare it if we're not sure, just to make sure we're on the right lines. So again, we want to, there's also a wall in here. We want to kind of look at the shape of this, how it goes. So we can also put the wall in to help us. So we can put the top of the wall in, which comes up just above halfway. If I put my halfway mark in again, just looking at that stone wall comes just over the top there, which is wider, isn't it, than this path? So maybe it needs to make it slightly. And what we can do then is actually follow the line of this path, just looking at the angle and transferring the angle of the path down on the page. It should be more or less where we think it is. So it'll be a bit bumpier. And pop in some bumps if you want to at the bottom, look. And then I'm just going to pop the edge of that wall in there where I'd marked out earlier. Okay, and then we've got this grass coming out here. And then we can kind of just bring it round, bring it out a little bit further. It kind of comes out, doesn't it? And blocks that path a bit. And then we've got this edge of the grass. We can just follow the line. And again, I'm making that a little bit a gentle curve with some, you know, some movement in it. Just round there. Like that. Got the edge of the wall here that's coming up. And then we want to kind of have this coming backwards, don't we? So obviously we're looking at it comes all the way from that halfway mark pretty much. And kind of bumbles along. Quite looks like it's got a big stack in the middle of it, doesn't it? There we go. So yes, we've got plenty to go on there, and obviously there's a post there. You can leave it in or take it out. It's entirely up to you. So now we're just checking this grass now, so I can see this bit of grass here, and the path needs to be a bit more narrow, and this grass needs to come round a little bit more. So I'm just going to do that now. Yeah, a bit happy with that. And then obviously I've got the wall here. Goes past there. And the only other thing I'll probably pop on, so I know that I've got more or less, we've got this little bit here as well, this bit of the hill here coming down. So I'm just going to pop that in. You can see that, can't we, just coming down the bottom end. And then you can see the wall extending up behind it. Comes from behind the house there, doesn't it? But just see it going upwards. We're just getting just getting the big proportion really in. And then we've got this lovely farmhouse, haven't we, here as well. So, and then we've got a back wall coming, extending over the top there. So a bit of field, we can see a little bit of field there. So I'm gonna pop that in. This is really just so I get I can make sure I've got enough of these lovely colours in really. And then we've got the edge of this wall. And again, that one is kind of going upwards slightly. So we want to, make sure it's going upwards a little bit. And again, it's not perfect, is it? It's lovely, just as you expect. It's man-made, it's handmade, isn't it? It's lovely. Yeah, there's a few little bits in there. Might be a little bit wider. It doesn't really matter though if you get things slightly out. It's our interpretation of what we see. So yes, we've got this that goes across almost halfway between this half. Comes quite far out, doesn't it? So I'm just going to pop the middle there. So this is the middle. So now I'm looking at where this house goes out to, and I'll pop a little mark. So the top of the roof and the bottom of the roof. There. And then how far out it comes. So that's the halfway mark. And again, this comes out, extends. This way. In the corners here. So we can pop that in. So, have a little look. Is it totally parallel? But no, it leans that way slightly, doesn't it? So again, puts in some of the character of the building. It's got a slight lean downwards. And usually the roof is parallel to the top. So we can copy that same direction. Downwards. And then again, have a little look at the angle. And all we're doing there, look, is just because we might be a little bit out with our guesswork, but this is our fact checking. So that's the angle it should be on this end. We'll check that. They're not always, depending on the way the photo is taken, yeah, you see that's not quite as deep an angle as that one. So then we're starting to get some of these buildings in. And then, we can look at this just comes straight. Does it come straight down? Is it totally parallel to that? Yes, it is. And then again, this edge of the house as well. And then the one at the back, we're just looking, how far it comes further up, doesn't it? The back of the house comes further up there. I'm looking at the steep angle. trying to transfer that across. It stops, and then we've got the edge of the house coming in like that. Okay. And then they've got this next one here. So that's a lovely, there's a few little farm buildings there. And whichever buildings you're doing, and you take each one, because sometimes obviously farm buildings and things might be a bit, depends what height they're built on, everything, doesn't it really? And what angle the photograph's been taken from. So I would just use the edge of this building here. And I'm looking at the angle there. You can use your ruler to fact check it if you want to. I'm just going to go for it. And then the edge of this building, which is all in the shade. So we'll be thinking about those tones when we're doing it. And then again, this end of the building here comes, just draw a line on there so you can see it, halfway in this, around halfway in this half. So if I put the halfway mark there again, so you can see, then we're looking at this house extending about halfway. So I'm going to pop a little mark there. And again, we're looking at the top of that roof. Is it totally parallel straight? No, there's ever so slight lean on it, not a big one. Leans slightly up, but not very much. It is almost parallel. I'm just going to pop a mark to where I think it comes to. And then we want the edge, looking at the edge of the house. Now that one, again, the pipe on there, again, just ever so slightly leans upwards. And then let's have a little look. So we've got a bit of perspective in this one as well. It's quite nice. And then obviously we can follow that. That definitely comes straight down the edge of that one there. So that one is vertical drop here. And then we can see a bit more detail, like where the houses come on. Then we can also see that there's a little bit of this grass extended at the front. Just you can only just see it. Things like the windows, I'm actually going to leave for the time being anyway, and I'll pop those on after over the top of the wash, and I might even do some of that with the pen. So I'm not going to go kind of over detail with it. I mean, you can go really loose on this. You don't need to put as much in if you like to kind of go loose with it, but it's nice. It's whichever way you choose to do it. So there's a little bit of a building here as well behind, and it's like, well, do you want that in or not? You can put it in if you want to. Sometimes we leave things out that we don't want to pop in, and I can go and pop all of that building in, but actually I'm quite happy with these ones here. So I think there I'm going to have that green behind it and just have this kind of bit of the wall going up there. I might just keep this nice and dark in the background. So what I do want to get in though is the patchwork of the hills and everything. So go up again. We've got these hills coming over the top. I've made my sky a lot less here actually, haven't I? Or is it too wide? Maybe this is just a bit too wide. So I'll just put a little rubber out. That is the beauty as well. If you have done it nice and lightly, it makes it much easier to kind of get rid of any marks. So I'm just going to ring because it's almost in. It's not far off in line with that one, but I've made mine really tall. That's better. Okay. So it's just really now extending just over the top of this house behind the trees. And then we can see some kind of green areas up here, but we're behind the trees. So I'll pop those in first. And then a low cloud over the hillside or something there. There we go. Okay, there's plenty to go on there. So I'm going to make my windows and things a little bit more loose, so I'm not going to pop those in. So when we get to the when we've got that point, I haven't drawn the trees in because I'm just going to pop those in behind over the top of the sky once I've got the colour that I want for the sky as well. So that would be good. So here we go. This is where the testing comes in well. Depends on where you want to start. You can drop a few different colours in and try that and things like that. But again, it's personal choice. So you have to decide how loose you want to do it. Do you want to drop colours in? This one's easier because obviously we've got quite neutral colours in there. So even if you dropped a bit of orangey green or yellowy green in there, it's not going to make a terrible, people sometimes if they've dropped a blue colour into like a yellowy, you can end up with those skies that are a bit green. So you just got to be a bit careful. But when you've got similar tones, it's easy to drop a few in and not worry too much about it. But you can go as vibrant as you want or as watery as you want with the pigment really kind of watered down. Entirely up to you. I'm going to start. I'm going to pop in some of these lighter colours for the sky and then the path and just kind of work in those light ones. So then it gives me a chance before I put these darks in for it to dry a bit. Because I quite like it when you get, and this is again personal, you don't know until you do it. What do you really like personally? Do you like the colours to run or do you not? Or do you like them just to run a tiny bit? So it's working out how much you want the paper to dry before you actually go ahead. And sometimes you don't know that till you've done it. So more often than not, with watercolor, it can just run in a certain way or whatever. It's just trial and error. So don't worry about making mistakes with it at all. So I'm just going to have a little look, test some colours for my sky. And let's see. So almost, I might just try a bit of a greeny. That's a bit too green. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay. What that is just a bit, actually, it's a bit of a, that's a bit of a blue green here. Yeah, it is. It's a dark, very dark blue. It's almost a bit Payne's grey, but I've dropped a bit of green into it. Just going to test that. So I'm just looking at the shadowy, cloudy bits that I can put in. So I think for these shadowy cloud bits, I'm going to look at adding a tiny bit of warming that up and adding a tiny bit of rose to it. But you could try a bit of alizarian crimson or something. That kind of makes a nice moody cloud. Look. Let's try that again. Yeah, I quite like that. But again, this is, it's entirely up to you. Some people might want to go more yellowy with that. So I find it more yellowy over here. What I do know is I do need to mix up plenty of the colour. Simply because I want it kind of ready when I'm ready to use it. You can always wipe it off, that's the other thing. Some more alizarin crimson in there. Alizarin crimson is, your typical in most sets you'll get something like alizarin crimson. That's great. Also, just going to add a tiny touch of a warmer orangey yellow in there. Yeah, it's looking a bit more like it. Yeah, I'm happy with that for the overcloud. That's a cloud of light. So I'm just going to look at some light colours to build up first of all, under this area. Now I might even use my paper just to come through there and then start to layer over some of these. So I may have a little look at, let's see what we've got here. Go in with a bit of yellow here. And again, this is personal choice. It's not like, you don't have to use this colour. You can go in as bright and bold or as pale as you want. I'm using here white as a mixer just to get a bit more of a interesting colour for the background. Let's see. Because of course we can't layer over the white watercolour like we can with acrylics or pastels or anything. Not to cover it anyway. So let's just have a test of this. I might even just add a touch of this orange as well. I'm feeling there's a bit of orange overlay over this cloudy area here. Yeah. And then it gets darker and darker as it goes over, doesn't it? So let's mix up more of that to make sure we've got plenty. And really, we're just making these choices as we go all the time. If you don't want this sky, go for a nice, go for a nice blue. You can exchange anything you want. If you think it's just not my thing, these colours are too, neutral. Just change it. Just pop a really nice, if you love blues, pop blues in. Really is up to you. It's your artwork. Just going to add a bit more now, so we've got plenty of that. Okay, and then just a tiny bit more lift that side a little bit. That side a little bit. Right, let's see how we go with that. So you can go in with, as I said, you can go in with a black brush if you want, or you can just go in with a round. It's entirely up to you. If you've got a lot to cover, go in with the bigger brush that you can, because it'll really kind of pull in. I'm going in with a slightly small one because my wide will fill up the whole thing actually at the moment. I'm just going to be careful to avoid those lighter areas and start to build up some of these other colours that I can see over here. I'm just starting to build up some of these lighter colours. Start to add a bit of, make sure there's a little bit of colour there. I'm leaving these lighter bits underneath. Start to just drop in. Well, it's going to be too wet over that side to put the darker in, and I don't want it to kind of run too much. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Start to build in some of this darker shadow over here. A lot of it is loading it up plenty on your brush, and then you can really pull it across using the side of your brush even. Those slightly warmer ones. And again, it's just waiting for the right moment to drop these in, because your darks could cover the whole, really spread out. But I'm kind of starting to drop a few in now because I'm quite happy, because they are quite cloud-like, that it's not going to just muddy everything. The more it dries, it depends where you're working as well. So if you're working in a really warm room, it'll dry much faster, so you'll have to work a little bit faster. If you're in a cooler space, it's going to be a bit, bit less so. So I'm starting to build up here over this side where it's much darker. Starting to build that up. Make it much darker over this side, which we can do. And like I said, you don't know till you do it how dark you really, really like it and don't like it. It's one of those trial and error things. Which is why I always suggest if you just start slightly lighter, you know, it saves saying, oh, I really don't like the effect. I just don't like it now at all. Just gradually drop the colour in. And a very much small bit over here. Trying a little bit now. Okay, so I'm going to come away from the sky now for a minute because we can get very pulled into an area. And then I'm looking at this area of the hills and things behind here. And I want to get these really light, bright ones in. So I'm going to go for quite a bit like a greeny colour there, actually. Let's see what look we've got. It's all sorts of greens. So it's like you've got your blue greens and your warmer yellow greens. So you'll have to work out which you've got in your set. But I want a cross between the two, really. Start to pop in some of the lighter areas as though it's where the light, you're getting some shadow falling on the fields, and then there's a few behind are brighter, so I'm going to go in with a bright yellow in with some of that green just behind here. I can't see altogether, it's the top, it might even be the top of the roof, but I'll just pop them in anyway. Some up the back side here, look between the between the wall. So I'm just working on this kind of section overall. That's a bit more bluey green. There we go. And it looks like it's sticking out at the moment, it won't be. And then I'm going to go in and build up some of these darker colours. But I'm just going to look for a really dark green, like you could use something like a viridian. So I've got this dark green in here. This one looks a bit more of a viridian green, but you could use like a hooker's green or something that's really dark. Haven't got one of these. Look what this one is. Yeah, that's a good one. Put that in there. Test that. Yeah. I'm going to go for, see if I've got some raw umber in there as well. It looks a bit warmer. There we go. I'm happy with that. Slightly warmer, that. So I've mixed plenty up. So I'm just going to go in at the top here. I'm going to see, just test it by kind of tentatively coming near to this band that I've put in there. And again, because I've got such a small piece of paper, I'm going in with a smaller round brush. I'm just pushing that over like that. I'm letting it run a little bit. Just bringing that darker hill right up to the side of this house here. And then I want some of this behind as well, where the backs of this is, where the trees are. And then I'll be able to put some of those darker trees over the top. But we're just, we're just really just using our observation skills of what we think we can see and representing it ourselves. So important to do our own artist impression of what we can see. Okay. There we go. So let that dry a little bit. And then I would really like to start kind of bringing some trees, but we can even do that with a pen. So what you can do is when you're putting the pen over the top, you can kind of create some more of it and then just drop shapes in if you want to. So I could actually pop the sticks in even with the pen, and then just drop in some of the colours. Just going to see if this is dry enough because I don't want it to run too much, but some people love it running. So if you're one of those people, you start dropping it in and you think, oh, that I'm just absolutely loving that, then absolutely go with it. So I'm looking for this really dark brown here to go in. It's very dark, isn't it? I don't know if that's any dark. That's a little. I'm mixing it with some of this. That's fine. Iridium. So I'm going to try and have a little look. I'll start just tentatively over here where we get kind of. So all I'm going to do for now is drop some shapes in. I'm just kind of dropping dots and then I'm going to use that pen to help me out a little bit over the top. So it's going to look like there's floating heads in here. So I'm not going to put that in because I don't like it. And again, artist impression, you can just pop in what you fancy. So I'm just going to pop in instead this lovely, almost drop in shapes of this tree. There we go. And then, as I said, I'm going to add in some extra. And I've just got a little fine brush to do this, to be honest. I'm just dropping in tops of the trees up here. Some really nice effects. After I've done this, I will stop and take a pause and see how you get on. We'll just get some of these in because it's quite really nice shapes. It's very absorbing, his watercolour. It's lovely. Really enjoy coming back to it. It's just nice to mix it up a little bit. And you do enjoy using the materials much more, I find, if you're using different ones. Some bigger trees here. I'm just going to mix up a little bit more. Those colours. So this Iridium. And we've got some of this very dark brown. You can go even darker though if you want. Okay, there you go. So yeah. And you can even drop in a little bit more if you want it to be a bit thicker and a bit less translucent. So just drop some more colour in. We're just experimenting with our brushwork, really. quite heavy behind this building. There's plenty of foliage. Or no, it's not, is it? It's twigs now at this point. Plenty of lovely things going on there. There we go, so just building that up. Yeah, and because obviously we've got the light colours in the background, we can overlay that really, so that works out brilliantly. But I'm going to do all my pen work kind of near the end anyway. So just before I stop, again, if there's any other, if you're looking and you're comfortable with the contrast you've got so far, these really dark ones are okay for you. Then before we darken anything else, let's just get in some of the colours on here, and you can either block in. So like this, some of the other ones where you've got some real obvious colours, you can kind of dot them in. But if it's a little bit two-tone, like here, I would go for a slightly cooler roof. So I've been looking at, let's say, be careful not to put this down too much on my painting. I'm going to go for a slightly warmer brickwork. So I'm going to look at something like yellow ochre, which is quite warm. And again, you want plenty once you mix in. So test that. So that's quite warm. But I'm going to have two tones of it. So I'm going to actually drop in a tiny amount of pink because that's what I'm seeing. So rose. And we can only put in what we can see. So that's the warmer one. I also want one that's a bit cooler to drop in there as well. So I'm going to take a bit of ochre. And I'm going to just make it a bit more pastel with some white. Like that. Yeah, slightly. Let's just put more white. Okay, so we've got a couple of tones there. So I am going to go in, just start to get those lightest ones in first. Any particular areas where you could see it's a bit lighter, start to drop those in. Okay. Same on the other house. I'm just going over where I'm going to put windows, but it's around the window area at the top. It looks a bit lighter to me. While that's just drying off a little bit, I'm going to look for a colour for the roof. So I'm going to go for cool that right down. It's a little bit cooler. It's a bit lighter at the front. So I might pop a little bit of this light one in, just at the edges here. And then I'll just go over it as I do it. This is slightly warmer. But again, it's got a cool edge in it as well. So I'm just going to go over this nice and lightly with that. But the top here has got some cooler brown in it. So I'm not going to go for a really warm brown. I'm going to go for a cool brown. Again, like raw umber or something like that. Burnt umber is much warmer. Okay, so that's really quite dark. So that's the darkest I want to go. So I'm going to add a small amount of ochre to this brown just to lighten it up slightly. And just start to pop in some of those colours that's slightly darker there. I can always, build it up and pop the very darkest one in. Just moving it. So I'm not going to make this like a perfect painting, e.g., I'm not copying every single little tiny stone. I'm just getting some colour variation in there. And then eventually I'll drop some of this darker one as well. And we'll take that bit out because I used the wrong colour there. So if you take things out quickly with your brush, it should be fine. I've just gone into the green by accident. This is where I'm going for this much darker brown in here. Where I need to make sure that's washed on a bit. Just to get in some of these dark, like more shadowy areas on the roof. And again, it doesn't look perfectly straight, the top or anything yet, but I'll work into that a little bit with my pen after. Just want to get in some of the sense of this farmhouse. And then over this other side as well. And we mix this a little bit with the orangey colour. Looks a bit lighter because it's not really dark on there. It's just ever so slightly different tone in places. And then I'm going to, whilst this has dried off a little bit, I'm going to start popping in some of this warmer tone that I was talking about earlier. Just to get, something interesting. Just gives it a sense that it is actually a stone house as well. There are some little windows there that I've just missed, but you can pop those around, draw around those. If you suddenly see one like a window or something that's really, it should have been in, just quickly take out any paint with a clean wet brush. So that you can leave those windows. You can even use a there we go. And then we can go kind of pop the details of those in. And then just popping in a little bit more warmth here near the bottom as well. I'm not worrying about leaving a space here because we've not got any white. We've simply just got here some windows. And then at the top here, get a bit of that in there. And then again, we've got some darker brown shadow here between the houses, which makes a nice contrast. So we're just kind of getting all these quite in nice and loosely today. Dropping these in between the houses. Okay. It's creating that kind of depth between the two, which is lovely. Right, I think we'll take a pause there and just see how we're getting on, and then we'll just keep adding the elements as we go. Okay, so we just keep carrying on really, getting some of these bits and pieces and the details in. And I'm just working kind of backwards. I'm just going to have a little look at this, some of these areas here that are a bit darker and start popping in some of those. So I'm going to have a little look at these darker walls here. And what I was going to say earlier was once you've got your light area in, like the houses are quite light, aren't they? You can then decide, is this contrast okay for you with the darks and the lights? Is it too dark? Is it dark enough, etc. And if you're happy with the contrast, you think actually don't mind that it being that dark, then go ahead and find the other areas that are as dark and start popping those in. You can always even darken them even further at nearer the end. But you can make these kinds of decisions quite early on anyway. So I'm just going to do that now. I'm going to mix up some more of this. Do the changing a brush, actually it's a little bit small, not getting enough water on my brush. There we go. Browning that as well. I'm trying to keep it in keeping with the other colour. Excuse me, moving across the screen. If I'd have mixed even more up, that would have been even better, wouldn't it? And then I won't be having to remember which colour to put in. Just give it a little bit of a test. It's just marginally lighter anyway, so let's have a look at that. So I'm going to pop this wall in here. It goes over the front. Comes out the side here. And then this other one that comes down. So because this wall here is a little bit higgledy-piggledy, I'm just going to kind of do that myself. There are a few tiny lighter bits in there, so I might just pop those in. See some of these colours I've got here. They're not really light, but just pop in a bit of green or something. It's a bit lighter. Just going to get those in amongst the really dark bit of the wall. Same here. And then we can start to work in those darker ones. That one goes on the side of there, doesn't it? I didn't notice that actually. That needed to come. This bit of the house needs to come in. And I'm just dropping in these other darker colours of the wall. Although they're very much in the shadow, aren't they, as well? That's what I'm observing here. Particularly at the bottom of the wall as well. It's where you get most of the shadow in there. Okay. And then I'm just going to pop in. And again, you don't have to put this in with your brush. You can pop it in with a line and wash if you want to. But I'm going to make it just a little bit. Pop a little bit because I'm not sure how much sketch I'm going to want to put on yet. So I would like this shadow in there for sure. I'm not putting a really straight thick line in to start with though, because I want to keep it a little bit loose. So really just adding, just kind of bringing it along. Okay, and then we've got a little bit of a line up here. Something on the top here. Be a bit careful with that line at the top, doesn't flatten everything off. So I'm just going to loosen that where the tree line is here. greens back in. There we go. Another bit of green going. I've just spotted another bit of green at the back here. Just popping in some of the warmth here. Make sure that your water's nice and clean. They don't drop any darks in when you don't want them. Okay, so we've got some other big areas now, haven't we? Of wall and things to think about. So I'm going to actually go and do my wall. I'm going to come in and start to bring in some of these nice colours, these nice greens. I'm going to pop in some kind of warmer tones as well, almost some oranges and things in there. It's got that nice almost sunset glow. So let's see. I'm going to actually just give it a clean off some of these colours. A bit of tissue. Obviously, don't clean them off if you're going to use them, but I'm really focusing on these greens now. I might keep that one, not that one, and not that one. Okay, so I've just washed that bit of paint in there. Never mind, eh? Just be careful when I'm popping it. Just pop it some back in. That'll be fine. Right. So this is where I want to start thinking about. So I've got all sorts of kind of heathery, not heathery, but like kind of orangey yellows now. So I may go in with a colour that's really typical of our landscapes here, which is burnt sienna. Well, that looks a bit more like Venetian red, which is not dissimilar. Let's see if this is my burnt sienna. See? Yeah, that's more like burnt sienna, actually, that one there. That one's more rich red, so I'll say that's like a Venetian red. So this one is, that's the difference. Look, slightly more red in it. Equally nice. So I want some of these, and I'm going to bring in a little bit of orange here as well. I can kind of pop in, because I quite like that pop of orange as well, on top of the red. And I'm going to mix up some yellow ochre. So that I've got these colours really nice and handy. So just show what we're doing without squashing my picture. Looking at these for the size of what we've got here. So then the grassed area. So then I'm also wanting a really nice vibrant greeny yellow. So I'm going for something like a sap green, I think, to start with. So that's not sap green. There it is. Plenty in. And then I'm going to add some nice bright yellows in. I've gone for a slightly warmer yellow, which is like a bit like a chrome yellow. I want some nice pops. Nice kind of vibrant greens in there. We can mix plenty of that. To pop in amongst it. It's kind of really vibrant, getting more vibrant there. Plenty of it. we can warm up, you know, or brighten up and kind of get these lovely vivid lime greens just by adding more yellow to them. Okay, and then I will finish up with a nice dark green to drop in, but I'm not there yet with that. So I'm kind of looking at these different areas. I've got this one in here. I'm happy with that, just being plain. And I want to look at the colours for this, you know, this along the way as well. Very interesting. So let's have a look. So obviously, if we can try go light to darker, so I'm going to go from kind of more yellow tones up on this bank here. And start to pop in, and I will start to drop it a little bit more, so where you've got this wet in wet way, dropping in some of these colours. You could also pop some salt in there if you wanted to. Like that. Okay. I'm getting those in. I'm also going to do the same down here. I'm using these yellow ochre colours down here, where you get them these clumps coming off the bank. Now, don't worry, you can use a thinner brush to get the grass-like feel, or you can put it in with the pen. I'm going to pop it in with my pen. Here, filling out over the side of the road here. Got some here. I will keep those a bit thinner, just to pop a little bit of texture in there. Really nice, aren't they, when you get these pops of colour coming down. And then we've got these like quite bright, some quite yellowy colours as well. So I'm just going to pop in those because these are lighter. But important too. Some really nice bright yellows in this bank as well. Brighter over here for sure. You can see dropping a bit of yellow to some of these. And easily. And drop underneath because I don't mind if that mixes together and makes a brighter colour. Just weaving in a few of these brights in here. It looks quite, I know it looks quite bright, but let's see how it works. Okay, so I'm going to try and just some that are a bit more orangey over here. So I'm just going to drop in a little bit of orangey into some of these. And then you'll see I'm just going to drop in as we go around the edge of this track some of those sienna, like those that burnt sienna colour there. But I'll do that really nearly. Just having a little check to see what that would be like there. Okay, I'm just going to dry it off for now. So I'm starting to build in some of these other colours. So up here I can see we've got some sienna. These other, this is more the sienna colour. Just going to start dropping in a few of these, and it is going to run. And again, you don't always know how much it's going to run when it's quite wet, so it's quite enjoyable. Just have a go. Just kind of let go of what it's exactly how it's going to be to finish. You can always put some shape back with some of the pen. Okay, I'm going to pop it down here as well. Right, I'm going to go in with the greens now. So around here, into these lovely brights. And again, I'm dropping these in amongst the yellows as well because I don't mind them running together at all. It's still quite damp, so I'll be able to do that. And just enjoy it, just really enjoy kind of having a play with those colours. You know, you can soften the edges a bit, you don't have to have a really hard edge because it's grass after all. Right, so I'm going to go in with some more clear areas around here. Some of these are getting darker, and again, I'm quite happy as long as I've got some areas of kind of more vibrant grass. I'm quite happy for these to run a little bit as well. It'll just be made kind of more browny greeny. That's okay because it does. Raw here, that's really bright, and this is a little bit darker anyway in places. So I'm going to go in with this first colour before I put any darks on. And it won't make as much sense till the wall's in anyway. So it will really start to pop when we get the wall in. Everything will make more sense. Probably not put the darks in. I'll let this dry for a bit and I'll pop the darks in once we've got the wall in place as well, because we'll be able to see where the bottoms of the stones come to and things like that. So just getting those into place. Grass at the top, that's quite light. So again, I'll let that run together. Got plenty on the end of your brush and then pull, you know, drag the different shapes into place. Okay. And then I'm just going to drop some of the greens up here, although these are probably going to be a bit darker. I'll just drop a few into the mix in the middle here. Excuse me. Makes it interesting patchwork, doesn't it? So I'm just going to go in with these darks. Again. And get this much darker green. That's a bit too dark. Some leaf green there. I'll drop some of this leaf green in. Hope you're enjoying just having a go and dropping these lovely colours in. And you can drop a few more through it if you want to. I'm just going to thin those out with a bit of water. Okay. Right, so I'm going to come away now and start to get some of this path and wall in. I think the wall will give it much better placement, and then we'll be able to put in the dark shadows of the clumps of those grasses. So let's have a look. So in terms of the colours that you can see on there, again, it's light to dark really, but I'm not going to go into massive detail. I'm just going to start kind of popping them in, make sure I get a bit of shape. The one's a bit more detail at the front, but then I'm going to use very much my pen to get those in as well. So I'm not going to get too caught up. So in a way, I want to keep this dark colour here. Some of these colours I can use actually, like some of the Venetian reds and things like that, but I'm probably going to use these ochre colours, just a little bit less intense. So I'm going to pastelize them with some white, the tint. Not quite as warm as that, are they? There's a couple in places. They've almost got like a pinky tinge, some of them. So I'll maybe just take a pink tinge to this with this Venetian here. And again, you can pop in what you want anyway, you know, if you see a colour. So I'm going to pop a few warm ones in. Put a bit more of that red in, I think. Mix all of that together. So I'm having as much of this possibly red as possible, right together, sorry, I should have said. So I'm just going to pop in some kind of more warmth, and all I'm going to do is start to get the general idea that there's some kind of wall stones there. I'll leave the top because that's a bit more. And I'm not going to put this colour absolutely everywhere, but I'll start to, you know, we can start to weave it through, can't we? I like to make some of these stones over here as well. It's a little bit bigger. Just starting to pop them in. And I'm also going to go around some of the ones I want to keep nice and light as well. Make sure I don't go over them, so you can kind of create a few little shapes if you want. I'm just picking out a few at the front here, not really doing matters to them. Look. They're a bit more pinky. It's starting to come bit by bit. It's a bit there. Yeah. And I'm just going to drop in some other, you know, the next kind. I'm going to go for a grey colour now, a slaty grey. And so let's see, we can pop a little bit of, actually use, you know, this base. I'll try a little bit of blue in there. Not blue. So like ultramarine would be a good colour because it does grey down. Bluey grey. Let's test it. Yeah, quite happy with that. Quite slaty, but it's got that kind of pink undertone. So let me see. So I'm just going to pop it kind of in between. We haven't got the shadows in or anything, but again, we can do that with a pen if we want to. or not. I'm just going to weave some of these colours really quite roughly through here, actually. Just get a general, some of the shapes of it. And then might overlap a few. Drop some of that, colour into it because they are quite multicolored, aren't they? Or I kind of go in with any darks or anything. A few lines through. And then I'm going to go in with some, I am still going to pop in some darker ones. So again, I'm going to actually use up a little bit of this green that I've already got. And I'm going to drop some blue into it. So we've got this nice slate colour again. But it's getting darker basically. Quite dark, isn't it? So again, you just test out the colour, make sure it's, what we're doing is we're comparing, is this as dark as this, etc. Because obviously it's a bit lighter up there, so we don't want to go too dark there. But I will start to pop in just a few gaps here. Sometimes it's actually easier to pop in the shadow. That's actually coming up a little bit too intense for me, so I'm just going to take a bit off with my brush. And spread that around a little bit as well. Just spread that about, and then it's not quite so. This is what I was saying earlier about sometimes it can feel, the contrast of certain things can feel quite a lot. So I'm just not popping too much more in there, just maybe a couple of little areas to suggest we've got this stone wall, but then I'll start to pop it in with my sketch near the end. And I've got a suggestion that there's this nice overlap of stones at the top. And same again here. A little bit dark at the top here, at the bottom, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to kind of just stop there for a moment. I am going to start just popping in. Get some of these in here, actually. Just popping in some of the shadows down the bottom before I put the path in, and then we can look at how, you know, what we can do to enhance what we've got already. So, yeah, so I'm looking at this dark shadow I mixed up earlier on the grass, and this is quite important actually when we come to doing underneath the wall, because it's where it naturally, the light does actually kind of come down over the top of the edge of the grass. So I'm just wiggling that in there, and we get those patches, don't we, of where it looks darker cast by the wall all the way along. Same on this side, and I'm kind of like not doing this incredibly carefully. I'm just kind of working a little bit faster, as you can really when you're just popping in. You can do it around these lovely darker areas. So wherever there are, if they're coming extending further out, then pop those in. Down this side you get more. It's obviously the side that's not lit as well. There we go. And then if there's any shadows that you can see, say like the sun up here, and capture that now, get that in above the wall. Any more shadow behind there. Quite important to capture that as well. You can make them even darker if you want to. So again, this is like making the decisions, you know, do I want to go darker? I'm happy to leave it there, etc. Same up here. Right, so let's have a little look at the path now. We'll just take our last pause actually, just to let you have a little catch up. Okay, so we've just got like the path to kind of pop in. We've obviously looked at other little details not quite popped in yet, but this is a really good stage to kind of have a little look at your colours. As I said, and as we go through, decide you want to put any more shadow in there, etc. But we've still got quite a bit with this path, so we'll have a little go with that. So, looking here, it's kind of sandy, pinky tones. How we enhance what we've got with this. Just make sure you've got clean water at this point, otherwise it will kind of make it a bit, might make this warm colour a bit muddy. So I'm having a little look. I'm actually going to pop in some salmony tones in here as well as some ochres. So I'm going to mix up these down here. Got some ochre colours here. Actually, that's a slightly warmer ochre. I'll try a bit of this Venetian red because that's quite nice. I want to use that Venetian red at the side as well, so let's get that mixed up. And you can, this salmony colour is a bit of the kind of, you could just put a little bit of alizarin crimson in, or a bit of like just a bit of pink or something like that. Just try either of those. So let's just test it. Yeah, it's slightly darker, so it's not a bit darker than I probably want, maybe the middle bit. So that's warmed it up with those warmer tones for sure. So I'm just gonna cool it back down again. I'm gonna add some water again because the the white will create a tint that's a pastel shade. You can thin colours right down if you prefer to do that, but I just quite like to add these colours. So let's test that one again. Okay, so I'm getting happy with that. I think I'm going to have just an ochre one. where I'm going to add a tiny bit of brown to it. And the reason I add a bit of brown to that is because it takes the warmth out of it, and it's only a really dark brown. Takes the warmth out of it. If you want a patch that's very that's a cooler tone, you can even have things like blue to it, but you'll see the difference there. So that's quite cool. So I'm going to go in with these cool ones first. So it's quite light at the back, so I think I'll start around this side. I'll bring in, I'm just dragging around these cool sides. You see, sometimes, you know, you get like an area where it's more, it's lighter, it catches the light a bit more. This is the lighter of the two. So I'm going to bring this all the way around. I'm just going to put in a very thin, I'm going to really wash that down, just kind of bring in just a tiny bit of colour into here. Not much. So, if you fancied putting a bit of texture in there, you can do it with your pen after, or even pop a bit of salt or something in there. And then all I'm going to do with that is to take some of these darker colours that I've started to mix and just drop them in. And I'm happy, because they're a very similar tone, I'm happy just to drop them in and let them run a little bit, because it kind of will just bring in a very natural kind of because sand does move in, doesn't it? Sand moves about. But you also get these little shadows in on a path like this. This bit's more in the shadow. So if this was two different tones, I maybe wouldn't want them to run in like this, but it doesn't matter because they are very similar in tone. And also, if you think, oh, it's a bit lighter in an area and I've not really captured that, then by all means use the edge of a brush. It could be a straight one or another one, and just like there's a bit there, I want to just take that out a bit. I want to make it lighter. So just take out anywhere that you think is a bit lighter than you planned. Like that. There we go. And then just in the edge, I'm just going to make this, you know, there's some quite dark shadows. So I'm going to go back in with this lovely Venetian red that I mixed up and just drop that in. It's drying off a little bit now, so it's probably not going to run. It just gives it a little bit of depth on this side as well. And it is a bit darker. This is a bit kind of warmer, but I just really like that colour, which is why I'm adding it. Not everything has to be an exact science. It just can do just purely because you really, really like a colour. That's good enough for me, is to be connected to a colour and enjoy it and have the joy of that colour. So I'm just going to drop a few of these little warmer colours into this wall as well, just because I really like it. Really liking that colour. And you do the same. If you've got one, you think, oh, that's lovely, I'd like it to appear in more places, then just do it. We don't need permission to use the colours we love. Okay, so I'm just want my tiniest bit, just drop in. Most of the texture I'm going to put on with the pen. So this is touch dry now, so that's fine. So what I'm actually going to do now is start to kind of overlay. I'm leaving this bit that I've just got wet because I don't want it to dry. So I'm going to start with thinking about how to get in some, to move my chair over a bit, you know, getting some of the line, the pen into the picture. And obviously this will make it much more stylized, illustrative feel, and nice. It gets, you can use it to get some of the character in things like the walls and everything. So I'm going to start up the back first, and and again with this, I know I've said this before, you can actually make it as sketchy as, e.g. pop in kind of a sketchy style, or you can make it neat and tidy. It's entirely up to you. It's your artwork. So I'm kind of using it to kind of get some of the some of the extra branches and things in there. I think the thing is as well is start light, so don't use it everywhere, and then start to add in details, and then you'll decide where else you want to move it. I definitely want to use it on some of the house. Now mine is very sketchy, so I am just adding a few extra bits to get in some extra shadows there. Yeah. And I don't make my edges straight, I've noticed this. That's part of the style that I do my artwork with. I just kind of put like some little lines together, as it were. It's fine. So, okay. Let's get some of these windows in. So, as I said, I've just left it, and they're not even perfectly symmetrical. It's just the style of that I'm adding on here. Just a little bit of, no, just get some in there. As I said, you can make it really do it really carefully. I just quite enjoy this kind of loose feel. And then the same over here, at the edge of this here. And your style that you come out with, the more you do these, the more you'll start to see your sketching style coming out through it. And you might start really tight, and then as over time you might get looser and looser and looser, and that's quite natural as well. I'm just going to pop in a few of these. Like that. There we go. So I've just gone in a little bit on the wall at the back as well. What else? Let's have a little look. So I'm just going to like focus in now on the wall. Just read this through. Just pop a bit through the trees. Okay, so this is where I tend to go in, starting where the shadows are. And then I might go around a few bits of the wall as well, getting some of those in. I just pick out key areas in this wall. So I'm not going to go through all of it because it will take, you know, hours and hours and hours to do that. I want to just kind of get a sense. What we're trying to do is get our artist's impression and a sense that this wall is it's a stone wall, really, the dry stone wall. So yeah, you'll see my sketching style. It's really quite a lot of movement in the way I sketch. I think it was the way I was encouraged to do it myself at university, actually. Well, maybe it was my teacher, my A-level teacher, who was pretty amazing, I have to say. It's all about developing your own style as well, similar to how I do things, which is just Lovely. Yeah, so I'm just kind of chunking out. So it doesn't even necessarily always need to fit over, something that you've done already. You can just kind of start to carve out. We'll get the general idea because, the rocks and everything do change. So find a few. If you're not sure, if you're getting a bit lost, just find a few shadows and just start filling in a few shadows, and then you'll see that the stones and everything will start to fit. This is even more sketchy than the last one. I hope you're enjoying just wiggling your pen about and just thinking, oh gosh, yeah, I can make movements and lines, and that's your artist's mark making, which is just so important. Really important. And then you'll see, these walls, you can see so much, and then you don't see anything. Watch, it's getting much more narrow. A few, as we're going in here, I'm just seeing a few downwards, they're getting narrower. Yes, they're getting a bit more narrow, aren't they, as they go down. Like that. Can't really see as much. You might think here as well, I'm just going to pop in just a little bit more in the shadow down here so we can really see where the bottom of this wall is. Do that if you want to. You might want to get a bit more shape on these top ones so it's more rounded. You can do that with your pen. And this is just, an ordinary fine liner. And then the same on this side. So look at the difference, how we've just got a few colours in and we can just really make it pop by popping in some of these. So I'm going to come onto this side now, do the same. Let's just pick out a couple of the bigger ones. Keep going with it. You don't have to make it this heavy either. You can just put a few marks in. Again, I'm just kind of looking at some dark areas. And again, as time goes on here, these bricks are getting smaller. Start to use less. Just enough so there we go. So then I suppose, when you look at the balance, I think, how much more do I want to put? And it's entirely up to you is the answer. And I'm just going to pop a little bit of extra, but I'm just going to do it a little bit thinner on here. Just a few little lines, because I've put quite a lot in actually here. So bottom again. But you can pop in, like there's some quite interesting little grasses and things. I'll probably just pick out where the biggest, amounts of texture are here. not to do that. There's nothing saying you have to do that either. It's just what you fancy doing. Just pop a little bit in there. I'm not going to over. What we sometimes do is overwork it. I'm going to leave it a little bit now here. Maybe just put a few grasses just here. I haven't actually put the dark ones in that side, but I'm going to have time to do that now. So again, I'm just like looking at just enhancing some of these shadows. And then, you know, I'll probably just pop a very small green light up the middle of this path. I'll probably choose. There we go. That's probably it for today. I don't think. I mean, I suppose I could kind of darken some of this if I wanted to. But I don't want to pop too much detail in that background area because I like to just make it quite sketchy up here. I like it not to pop forward. If we put too much detail in the background, it can pop forwards. But it's like a sense of this hill coming out and in. And that's probably, I will actually, I'll just stop there, except for just this little tiny, just a sense that my pen's been there. There we go. And that's all I would really pop on. But again, it's one of those things as you build up over time, sometimes you might think, oh, I'll put more pen, and other times I won't put any pen because I actually really like, you know, I don't want to do anything with this. But it is a very fun thing to do. It really is. You can do all sorts with it. And sometimes you might think I've put a tiny bit of pen on, other times I'll put loads more on. This is quite much heavier than the one I did last time. And you'll do that. You'll go through stages where you just think, sometimes your hand literally runs away with you, which is absolutely spot on. So that's great because you're not thinking, you that creative side of you is just taking over, and that's brilliant. So if you have had a good go, then that's a really brilliant thing, you know. And there's been a lot of perspective, all the different tones, all sorts of things in there. I'm just going to change this actually while I'm talking to you. I'll get this patch working a bit. It's come forward and doing exactly what I said. So yeah, so there's all sorts of things um, going on really. You'll learn an awful lot, and the textures, and then how to do the pen and, you know, the line. So great. You know, I hope you've really enjoyed that. It's fantastic for relaxation, is this? It really is. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and happy line and washing.